So I watched it, and surprise, surprise, the film's not good. And I'm not just saying that because I don't gravitate towards popular blockbuster films like these. I knew going into it this wasn't going to be my type of film from the start, but I still know what makes this type of film a good watch. And like I said, objectively, it's not good. The problem is that you can see at least some effort has been put into this film. There are some good elements, especially compared to the book, which is awful and which I read cover to cover for this video, which I feel deserves a like and subscribe as payment for the pain I've put myself through. Wink, wink. Nudge, nudge. Anyway, this made the viewing experience very frustrating because I feel that in some alternative reality, this film could have been good if they made better decisions over the characters, the tone, and the pacing. Or at least a little better, because the truth is there are a lot of poor or utterly baffling decisions made in It Ends With Us, and after reading the book, I can confidently say they come from the book, which we'll get to. But first, quick synopsis for the uninitiated who want to torture themselves with a video about a Coleen Hoover adaptation.
What's your name?
Lily. You?
Ryle.
So, Lily Bloom is a woman in her 30s, which is certainly an interesting decision I'll be talking about later, falling in love with Ryle's Kincaid, a successful, handsome neurosurgeon. Despite swearing off committed relationships, Ryles falls in love with Lily, but their love story takes an unexpected turn when Lily's first love, Atlas Corrigan, suddenly re-enters her life. Beyond the majority of the script being cringy enough to make your eyes roll to the back of your head, the film has much bigger thematic, pacing, and characterization issues. First of all, the synopsis tries to paint the film as a cutesy, romantic love triangle movie where the biggest conflict and emotional tension is on who Lily is going to end up with. But, and spoiler alert, the film is really about domestic violence, how abuse and fear can be enacted in what seems like the perfect relationship. Or at least it should be. Trying to connect the typical cutesy romantic atmosphere with such a devastating topic as domestic violence is an issue inherited from the adaptation material, since it does the same. And I can tell you now that a fair few of the film's problems stem back to this fundamental flaw concerning the story's confusing mix of light-hearted rom-com tone and the serious message behind DV. I hear there's a lot of drama swirling between Jason Baldoni, who's the director, having a different version of It Ends With Us compared to Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, who was also involved in the making of this film for some reason. Baldoni approached the subject matter with more seriousness and solemnity, whereas Lively and Reynolds made an edit that pushed for more rom-com, humour and light-heartedness. Whatever the truth is, the subject matter demands for a more consistently serious tone, which this film does not have. But you could even argue that the film had no chance for a good compromise in its tone simply because the book it's adapted from has the same issue. But the film also has missteps in isolation from the book, so I've separated the film's problems into two main categories: the problems in isolation from the adaptation and the problems stemming from the book. Starting with the former.
Atlas. You look so well. I don't want to get you in trouble or anything.
Hey, well, how do I find you? If I wanted to find you.
Let's just talk about the elephant in the room. Blake Lively is just too old for this film. That's not to say she doesn't look great in the film, but Lily being aged up causes two main issues for Lily's character. Number one, Lily is older, but Lively acts like Lily's still in her early 20s, like she is in the book. The result is that she just comes off as really immature. Lily is incredibly moody and snarky in the film, which is arguably acceptable for a 24-year-old, though I personally wouldn't see it, but it's arguable. But just annoying and childish at 35. Another thing, and I can't believe I'm praising the book, and this will be the first and last time I'm doing it, but at least in the book, Lily has some conviction and attitude which makes her snarkiness more acceptable. A great example is the eulogy scene, which is at the start of both the book and the film. In the book, when asked to write 5 good things about her father, Lily stands on stage and says nothing in defiance until she has to be dragged off by some family members. Not only does it creatively imply Lily's hostility against her dead father, it's also a clear sign of Lily's stubbornness and her intentional sense of justice over propriety. This makes her later decisions, including whether she decides to stay with Riles, more consistent with her character. In the film, Lily still is asked to write those 5 things, but she doesn't know what to say, chokes on stage, and then runs off. This doesn't make Lily's character seem strong despite her trauma with her father. It just showcases how Lily has trauma and is kind of emotionally stunted at 35. Overall, her moodiness feels kind of annoying and, like I said, immature, made especially apparent since they've aged up her character. If I had it my way, I would have made the younger Lily, played by Isabella Ferrer, play both the older version of Lily and the younger one in the flashback. It would have been easy to make her look like a teenager with something like a high ponytail and minimal makeup. Talking about temporal plot devices, there are far too many. There are a few flashbacks into Lily's past with Atlas, ludicrous name by the way, which I guess are acceptable. In the book, the flashbacks are done through multiple diary entries addressed to Ellen DeGeneres, which was so cringe-inducing the book really should have had a trigger warning. I'm glad they left that gem out. But aside from the flashbacks, there are also constant flash forwards and montages. I'm not kidding you. At least one point in the film, there was a flash forward montage, a scene, and then another flash forward montage. There are so many flash forwards that they have to mention how many months have passed. Lily literally says something along the lines of, "We haven't seen each other in 6 months." This makes the pacing feel incredibly disjointed and simply seems like a lazy way of getting through the book's content. If they wanted to fit in all the book's plot, then in all honesty, it would have been better for the book to be adapted into something like a limited series, like 4 episodes or so, to allow the content to breathe a little. Not to say the series would be any less dead on arrival as the film is, but that's another story.
We all have an idea of what love can be.
I want to see you again.
Now you see me.
You know what I mean.
There's a lot about the book that doesn't make sense, and because the film is largely a faithful adaptation of the book, transferring these details to the film objectively makes the film worse. Here's a few of my observations in brief. Number 1, it doesn't make sense that Lily's best friend, Elisa, happens to stumble on Lily's flower shop and happens to be Riles' sister. Ridiculously contrived plot doing ridiculously contrived plot things. Number 2, some of the lines in the film are monstrously embarrassing, especially coming out of a 35-year-old woman and a 40-year-old man. 3, how can a 35-year-old woman whose first impression of a man is him violently kicking a chair not expect said man to have anger issues? Please illuminate the reasoning for me. 4, as per my last point, how can a 35-year-old woman whose first impression of a man is him violently kicking a chair be attracted to said man? Again, please illuminate. 5, Riles is incredibly pushy in the film, but would you believe me when I say it's so much worse in the book? In the book, he's obsessive, whiny, and domineering. Something they thankfully left out of the film is when Riles actually gets on his knees, begging Lily to sleep with him. Hoover tries to play it off as comedic and to make him a more sympathetic character, but it just ends up making Riles seem manipulative and downright weird. And 6, and I know I've mentioned this before, but it really does bear mentioning again, the tone is so confusing. 1 second it's like a Disney film being all fluffy and bubbly and cutesy with all this upbeat music, and then there's a scene with DV. There's only a few times this juxtaposition happens to work well, which I'll be mentioning later, but overall the tone and the atmosphere are so confused. Not to say tonal juxtaposition can't work well in movies, they can, but there's not enough depth in the characters or the writing for such tonal shifts to read as anything other than bewildering.
I still remember the day I saw you in the window.
Yeah, we were just kids then.
Though rare, there are good directorial choices which hint at what this film could have been if a lot of things could have been changed, namely the book they were adapting from. Some of the little changes the film makes actually make quite a big difference. The film makes a good choice in making Lily and Riles comment on how preposterous their names are in a joking way, rather than being serious as they are in the book, because sometimes expressing irony and disbelief at an absurdity makes the absurd facts seem more believable, especially in film. Another thing, the name of Atlas's restaurant sounds better as Roots, that's what it's called in the film, and links better with the wooden heart that he carved for Lily and with the heart tattoo Lily has on her collarbone. They all work together as a cohesive motif. The restaurant has another name in the book, but it doesn't sound as nice, and the backstory and significance for Atlas's restaurant being called Roots is equivalent as it is in the book. It actually works better in the film than it does in the book. But the movie is at its best when the topic of DV is front and center and treated with the seriousness that the topic deserves. For example, there's an important scene where Riles confronts Lily's relationship with Atlas. The slow tonal change of having Lily and Riles laughing together, where Lily thinks there's nothing wrong, to Riles becoming angrier and angrier and the scene becoming much darker and scarier, is the right way of doing intentional tonal shifts, and it's the best way they could have attempted to incorporate the film's lighter mood with a subcurrent of alarming behavior and abuse. And some people actually cried in the theatre I was in when we got to Lily's important monologue, so there is some merit to the story the film is trying to tell. But let's be honest with ourselves here, the movie was doomed from the start. There's only so much you can expect from a Coleen Hoover adaptation, though I was surprised to see that some of the scenes and directorial choices were actually good and thoughtful, but this only makes it all the more frustrating to see all the missteps the film has in terms of tone, characterization, and pacing. If Blake Lively is the reason why the tone is so off in the film, I would like to give Baladoni's cut a chance, because I can't see how his version of the film could be any worse than what we got here. But until then, I'm going to have to say the film is really bad, objectively so, and kind of frustratingly so too. So there we go, those are my thoughts. Are you planning to watch It Ends With Us? Have you watched it just for the laughs? What did you think about it? Have you read the book? I don't know why you would want to, but have you? Whatever your thoughts about the movie, put them down in the comments below. I would love to read them and see what other people are thinking about this mess of a film. But yeah, thanks for watching. Bye.